Good morning again. In the scripture this morning that Bonnie read, it was the very end of the book of Judges, and it was a pretty bleak time. The Benjaminites were just about completely wiped out. Just a few men left. All the women and children were gone because of a terrible war that took place over a stupid act. And the rest of the Israelites felt pretty bad about it, in spite of what had been done. And so they made arrangements for the men to be able to get some wives. This almost reminds me of a movie that I saw one time. I'm sure it's based on a play, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. I don't know if you've seen that before. Lois is laughing. She's seen it. It's a musical, so, not everybody has seen it. But, there's 8 brothers, but 7 of them don't have a wife, and wintertime's coming on. So just before the pass is snowed in, they go into town, have a little, what do you call that for cowboys when they have parties? Anyway, hoedown. And so just as the snow starts, they grab a girl, all 7 brothers do, and run back to their place, which is on the other side of the pass. The town's all upset, but the snow's so bad they can't get in there. So these 7 brothers, have these women with them so they're able to fall in love with them and have the women fall in love with them, and they have their brides. It's a cute show. A lot of dancing and singing. Similar thing that happened in here with the tribe of Benjamin. So if it wasn't for the mercy of the other tribes finding wives for the remaining men, there'd only be 11 tribes, and Israel just couldn't stand that. We also find that Israel was without a leader. Said there was no king. And all the people are doing what they think is right in their own eyes. It's here that we find this beautiful book, the story of Ruth. The book of Ruth was originally part of the book of Judges. But later on it was given its own book because it was during that time, and you can tell that the story took place because it says that. But they separated it out, so it's a single story. But this story comes in the midst of a nation floundering for guidance. It is in this story that we see how people of character allow God to bless them in ways we would never expect. From a foreign woman, Ruth, a Moabite daughter-in-law of Naomi, ends up being the great-grandmother of the King David. Who would have thunk it? What I'd like for you to do is listen to the story as portrayed by our distinguished readers. We have Sydney Smith, that'll be our narrator. Carolyn Gaston will be Naomi. The talented and lovely Jamie Goebel will be Ruth, to steal a phrase from her husband. David Trammell will be Boaz.
The Magnificent.
The Magnificent. And I'll fill in for some of the other smaller parts. So I'll be multiple people. So I want to thank them ahead of time for helping me bring to life this all-important and beautiful story of Ruth.
In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech, and his wife's name was Naomi. And the names of their 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were the Ephrathites from Bethlehem, Judah. They went to Moab and lived there. Now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. They married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other named Ruth. After they had lived there for about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, and Naomi was left without her 2 sons and without her husband. When Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing food for them, she and her daughters-in-law were prepared to return home from there. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take her back to the land of Judah.
Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband.
Then she kissed them both goodbye, and they wept aloud.
We will go back with you to your people.
Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons who would become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters, it is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me.
At this they wept aloud again, and then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her.
Look, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and to her gods. Go back with her.
Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me.
When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. So the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them, and the women exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?"
Don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me.
So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. Now Naomi had a relative on her husband's side, a man of standing from the clan of Amalek, whose name was Boaz.
Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor.
Go ahead, my daughter.
So she went out, entered a field, and began to glean behind the harvesters. As it turned out, she was working in the field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Amalek. Just as Boaz arrived from Bethlehem, he greeted the harvesters.
The Lord be with you.
The Lord bless you.
Who does that young woman belong to?
She is the Moabite who came back from Moab with Naomi. She said, "Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters." She came into the field and has remained here from morning till now, except for a short rest in the shelter.
My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting and follow along after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you. And whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled.
At this, she bowed down with her face to the ground and asked him,
Why have I found such favor in your eyes, and that you notice me, a foreigner?
I have been told all about what you've done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. How you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with people you didn't even know before. May the Lord repay you for what you've done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wing you have come to take your refuge.
May I continue to find favor in your eyes, my Lord. You have put me at ease by speaking kindly to your servant, though I do not have the standing of one of your servants.
At mealtime, Boaz said to her,
Come over here. Have some bread and dip it in the wine vinegar.
She sat down with the harvesters. He offered her some roasted grains. She ate all she wanted and still had some left over. As she got up to glean, Boaz gave orders to his men.
Let her gather among the sheaves and don't reprimand her. Even pull out some stalks for her from the bundles and leave them for her to pick up. And don't rebuke her.
So Ruth gleaned in the field until evening. As she threshed the barley she had gathered, and it amounted to an ephah, she carried it back to town, and her mother-in-law saw how much she had gathered. Ruth also brought out and gave her what she had left over after she had eaten enough.
Where did you glean today? Where did you work? Blessed be the man who took notice of you.
The name of the man I worked for today was Boaz.
Oh, the Lord bless him. He has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead. That man is our close relative. He is one of our guardian redeemers.
He even said to me, "Stay with my workers until they finished harvesting all my grain."
It will be good for you, my daughter, to go with the women who work for him, because in someone else's field you might be harmed.
So Ruth stayed close to the women of Boaz to glean until the barley and wheat harvest were finished, and she lived with her mother-in-law. One day Ruth's mother-in-law Naomi said to her,
My daughter, I must find a home for you, where you will be well provided for. Now Boaz, with whose women you have worked, is a relative of ours. Tonight he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Wash, put on perfume, and get dressed in your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor, but don't let him know you were there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he is lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do.
"I will do whatever you say."
So she went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. When Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. In the middle of the night, something startled the man. He turned, and there was a woman lying at his feet.
Who are you?
"I am your servant Ruth. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of my family."
The Lord bless you, my daughter. The kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier. You have not run away after the younger men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. All the people in my town know that you're a woman of noble character. Although it is true that I am a guardian redeemer of your family, there is another who is more closely related than I. Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to do his duty as your guardian redeemer, good, let him redeem you. But if he's not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Lie here until morning.
So she lay at his feet until morning, but got up before anyone could be recognized.
No one must know that a woman came to the threshing floor. Bring me the shawl you were wearing and hold it out.
And when she did so, he poured into it 6 measures of barley and placed the bundle on her. Then he went back to town.
How did it go, my daughter?
"He gave me 6 measures of barley, saying, 'Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed.'"
Wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens, for the man will not rest until this matter is settled today.
Meanwhile, Boaz went up to the town gate and sat down there, just as the guardian redeemer he had mentioned came along.
Come over here, my friend, and sit down.
Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town and said,
Sit here.
Then he said to the guardian redeemer,
Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these seated here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, do so. But if you will not, tell me, so I will know. For no one has the right to do it except you, and I am next in line.
I'll redeem it.
On the day that you buy the land from Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the dead man's widow, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property.
And I cannot redeem it because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I cannot do it.
Now, in earlier times in Israel, for the redemption and transfer of property to become final, one party took off his sandal and gave it to the other. This was the method of legalizing transactions in Israel.
Buy it yourself. Here, I remove my sandal to seal the transaction.
Okay, today you are witness that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from his hometown. Today you are witnesses.
Then the elders and all the people at the gate said, We are witness. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who brought up together the family of Israel. May you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. Through the offspring the Lord gives you by this young woman, may your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. When he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. The women said to Naomi, "Praise be to the Lord, who on this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons has given him birth." Then Naomi took the child in her arms and cared for him. The women said, "Naomi has a son," and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. This, then, the family line of Perez. Perez was the father of Hezron, Hezron the father of Ram, Ram the father of Amminadab, Amminadab the father of Nahshon, Nahshon the father of Salmon, Salmon the father of Boaz, Boaz the father of Obed, Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of David.
Thank you again. You did an outstanding job. I love that story. Every year, have I ever told you I listen to the Daily Audio Bible? I probably have. I still promote that. It's a beautiful time to just go through the Bible year after year after year. You learn so many things that you just don't think about when you're sitting down and trying to just read, a book or two. But to hear the Bible read from cover to cover is a fantastic thing. And so every year when he gets to this book, it's just one of my favorites. And it is because not only is it kind of a neat story, I mean, goodness, there's romance, there's other things that go on. Let's see if I can even read my notes here. There's some injustice going on, hopelessness and despair. Just think about Naomi, She said, "Don't call me Naomi anymore. Call me Mara," because she was in despair. So you have these women that have lost their husbands and their sons. Naomi lost her sons as well. So they feel in deep despair. But at the heart of this story, this is an account of God's faithfulness to those who choose to do right. When people of character are faithful, God acts. This story comes at a great time. We are left with a bad taste in our mouth at the end of Judges, and this story helps redeem our hope in God's purposes and plans. As you can tell, this story has many layers. It does have the suffering, the romance, the hope, the redemption. With Ruth wanting to be the wife of Boaz, Boaz hits the jackpot. Just put yourself in his place. This beautiful woman moves into town that is a woman of character and devotion. Boaz, too, was a man of character. He loved Ruth and wanted to marry her, but still offered her and her land to his relative that was first in line to redeem her. You can almost taste the disappointment in him when the relative first says that he will redeem her. But then, when he changes his mind, it's kind of like, whew, I was hoping that would happen. Boaz is called a guardian redeemer, which is a beautiful picture of how Jesus is our redeemer as well. But what if? What if Naomi had become bitter? What if Ruth had also become bitter and gone back home? She had all the excuses to do so. It was the injustice of it all, hopelessness and despair. They could have kept her from seeing this through. But if that had happened, the story would have been totally different. We would never have known about it. Sometimes we think that we have the right to complain about how life is treating us But do we want to be right in our complaining, or do we want to be redeemed? The story exposes our hearts. It makes us stop and think about how we react in our own situations in life. If we want to be redeemed rather than be right, it changes our whole perspective of life. It changes our relationship with God. It changes our relationship with each other. May we choose to do redemption as opposed to what our rights might be. That choice will change our lives. Let's pray. Father, redemption is what you offer. You are the ultimate, almighty Redeemer. There are none of us that do not have a Redeemer, and you have done far more than to go to the city gates and negotiate a deal that would redeem us. You have moved heaven and earth. You have invaded this planet. You have given your life. You have redeemed us. So often we want to justify how we feel and how we are living and close the book on the story of redemption, which is an ongoing story, a story of sanctification, a story of transformation that is happening day by day by day, as long as we will allow you to participate in our lives, and as long as we will participate in that process. So often we are closing the book, holding our hands, folding our arms, growing angry, and being bitter, and watching the life just flow out of us. A life that you have offered us. So forgive us, Lord. We want to be redeemed. Bring the power of your redemption through your Holy Spirit into our lives this very day. Reorient us to what is going on. Give us the perspective to show us what is true. And pull us out of this hole that we continue to dig. Show us the redemption we have by your mighty power. And we ask in the name of the great Redeemer, in the name of our resurrected Christ. Amen. Let's stand as we sing.